Okay, I'm here this morning with Diane McCrea here in Belton, Texas. Diane, I understand that on Election Day, March 1st, some very unusual things occurred that in lots of ways it sounds like some voters' right to vote was denied or impaired in some way. What was your experience? What did you see? What happened?
My personal experience was I was the precinct judge of a precinct in Heidenheimer, actually. And that's not my personal precinct, but that's where I was assigned.
Mm-hmm.
There was also an alternate judge who was on the Democrat side. I was on the Republican side. We got there bright and early, opened our packets, and we were told to use the ballots that were sealed first. And so I had 125 ballots in a sealed packet. She had 25 Democrat ballots in a sealed packet. And I also had approximately 40 or so unsealed ballots.
Okay.
But anyway, I used my sealed ballots first, and we did everything fine, and everything worked fine. She had told me prior to the election,
She being who?
being the alternate judge,
Okay.
the Democrat judge.
Okay.
And she had told me that in that particular precinct where she had worked for 12 years or more, that they often had very, very few people turn out to vote. And so it would be a real simple day. So I said, you only have 25 ballots. That's not enough. She said, oh yes, I sometimes get only 10 or 12 voters. So I said, okay, well I should have ample on the Republican side. And about 2 o'clock, I checked with her, and she said, well, I've had a better turnout than usual. I only have 7 ballots left, but I'm not concerned about it. And I said, oh, I'm concerned. Let's call and get some more ballots delivered. She called and got a voicemail. I had told her how to do it to get somebody direct, but she got a voicemail. And probably an hour later, I said, did you get your ballots yet? And she said, no, I haven't heard anything back from them. And so about 3:30, I said, she had not had any more voters, so she still had 7 ballots left, and I had gobs. But I told her that I was going to call the election administrator and ask for more ballots for her, because that, when quitting time came, people would start flooding in, was my feeling. And so I did, and I actually got the assistant election administrator. And he said, oh, we'll have some delivered to you right away.
Okay.
So someone delivered to her. We were in a mobile home, and there were 2 doors. One we had marked Democrat, the other we marked Republican, so people came in the correct door to begin with. So the delivery person took her 20 ballots, and I heard somebody over there. I went to check. She said, oh, I got 20 more ballots, I'm fine. That's more than I'll need. About 15 minutes later, another lady came and she dropped off more ballots. I went over to check, and she said, why they delivered these others, I don't understand. She said, I got 25 more ballots, and they delivered this bunch to you, and it says 75 ballots. And I said, oh my goodness, I had over 200 ballots now. I don't need that many ballots. So at the end of the day, I had approximately 140 to 150 ballots left. She had close to 50 ballots left. We had a total, pardon me, of 104 voters that day, 19 of which were Democrats, and then we had, I think, just 1 spoiled ballot, but we didn't have any provisional ballots. We had given the election administrator, all of us were asked to give him our cell phone numbers in case he had any problems or anything. Here we were with tons of extra ballots. Rogers is a precinct that's approximately 7 or 8 minutes down the road from where we were in Heidenheimer. One of the Republican clerks that was working with me was from the Rogers area, and we had a couple of people early in the afternoon that came, and they should have been at the Rogers precinct. And so I asked this other lady to give them directions, and she told them how to get to the other precinct. Then between 6:30 and 7, when it was getting close to closing time, we had another couple come in. Well, the lady came in, said her husband was in the car, but she wanted to be sure she was at the right place. So she was not. She should have been in Rogers. This other clerk gave her directions, and she should have had plenty of time because it was less than 10 minutes away. When we had to deliver all our extra material and everything
Sure.
back to the election headquarters in Belton, and it was close to 8:30. The Democrat alternate judge went with me, or followed me,
Right.
to the what they call the tank,
Yes.
to deliver the election materials. And when we got there, there were people in the parking lot screaming and yelling, there's a mob riot at my precinct. And, people are mad as everything, and they're not getting to vote. And I said, what is going on? And they were telling me that so many places ran out of ballots. And I
Wow.
said, oh my goodness, we had extra ballots. And
But your ballots were specific for your precinct, correct? Or did they?
I did not realize until afterward that each ballot had the precinct number on it. I've wondered if those extra 75, particularly that I got, and the extra 25 that the Democrat side got, may have been intended for the Rogers precinct. I didn't know until way after the election that each ballot has a precinct number on it. I would have looked, but the Democrat judge told the delivery lady that we did not need those extra ballots. We had plenty. And she said, oh, just keep them. And she took off. And I tried to tell her too, as she was walking out the door, I don't need extra ballots. Here are 75 more Republican ballots. I don't need that. I've got gobs. And she said, oh, just keep them.
So when you went to the tank, as it's called, you were witnessing a lot of, were these people that had worked the election at their polls?
Yes.
Or were they voters that were coming? It was election workers?
No, it was election workers who had been at the precinct, acting as either clerks or judges.
Yes.
And some of the stories that I heard then later, I went to the exposition center where all the TVs were set up and everything, just to see what the returns were showing. And I learned there what a fiasco it had been, and so many places were sending one of their clerks out to a Xerox machine somewhere to make copies of the ballots. Some were even using sample ballots that we had to post on the wall for voters to come in and look at before they voted. And they were making copies of sample ballots. Well, that was not appropriate. And they said that the polls in Rogers stayed open till after 8:30. I mean, I guess they stopped the line, but people were still in line at 8:30 waiting for ballots to be delivered. And
My understanding of the election laws is as long as at 7 o'clock they can mark the line for the last person, but everyone in line up to that last person has the right to vote.
that's correct.
So you're...
That's what I'm trying to say, is
Okay.
that I'm sure they did stop it
Okay.
at 7 o'clock with the last person
But
in
at
line.
8:30 they
But
just
at
said...
8:30 they were still in line. And I don't know if they ever got
I see what you're
ballots.
saying.
I did hear, you hear all kinds of things, but I did hear that at various precincts, including Rogers, I think, they were offering people in the Republican line Democrat ballots to vote on, and those people were saying, absolutely not, I want to vote Republican. And so it was just generally a mess.
How many years have you worked as an election judge or clerk?
This was my first year to work as an election judge, and I was very concerned about being able to handle the machine and all that, but everything went fine. I've worked in the elections since the 1980s, but I had never worked as a judge.
Okay.
And I'd just been a helper and a clerk and what have you.
What kind of training does the county provide for the election workers?
That was one of my very big concerns. They did have a training session, I think it was February the 23rd, and they asked all election judges and all precinct workers to attend that meeting. There was very little that was covered other than, possibly how to handle provisional ballots, or, he handed a packet out and had a slideshow that also had those things that were in the packet on a visual. And all he did was really just read over that. So I had looked on YouTube to see how to handle that M100 machine because I had never done that before. I had worked with those where you pull the curtain and you flip the levers and all that stuff, and then you go around behind and count the number of votes on the back. But I had not worked. I had worked in a precinct where they used the M100 machine, but I had not been responsible for turning it on and running the tallies and all that sort of stuff. So actually the day before Election Day, on the day before March 1st, February 29th, I called the election administrator, Sean Snyder, and asked him if I could come and see him and if he could show me exactly what to do with this machine. He did. He met with me and he showed me exactly which key turns this and, how to get the memory card out to deliver to the tank that evening and all that stuff. So I felt very comfortable with that.
Okay.
That was not a problem. We were told to ask each person if they were the same address and to ask for picture identification.
Right.
And we did all of that. And we did have several people fill out change of address forms. And we had some, I had a military lady that said she had not registered in time, but she really wanted to vote. And I offered to let her vote provisionally, but I didn't give her hope that it would be counted because she had not really registered, but she chose not to do that. And other than that, the election went as we expected.
So do you feel like the training that the county election administrator provided was sufficient for being able to do the job from your years of experience?
No.
Okay.
I did hear that the Republican Party had a training session, but I was not told about it beforehand. I was not told about it, period, until after the fact I heard something about it.
Okay. So looking at the situation and what occurred and what you witnessed from your experience and then walking into the tank and seeing a lot of angry people and what you heard from them, was the problem predominantly the lack of ballots, or was there another issue that was also going on?
No, I think it was predominantly the lack of ballots. Although the administrator had told us in that February 23rd meeting that I think the Secretary of State provides him with a number of ballots that he should have for each precinct based on the prior voting history. But he told us at that meeting that they had allowed for growth in each precinct and added that number of ballots to what had previously been supplied, and he increased that by 50%. Well, according to the Democrat election judge that was in the precinct I worked in, she said that I probably wouldn't get between 40 and 50 voters, and she would have 9 or 10, so it would be a really slow day.
Wow.
That was not the case.
Yeah, they were anticipating, based on just the history of what's been going on across the nation, to have a much larger turnout in every state, precinct and all.
Absolutely.
So Is there anything else in particular from that experience that you would like to share with our audience?
Not really, only that I think it was unfortunate that a lot of people did not get to vote, because after waiting in line for over an hour, they had to go to work the following day. They had to take care of kids and other things at home. I feel like a lot of people just left and gave up. And I do feel that there was a greater Republican turnout than there were Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
they were the ones who were more disenfranchised than others. And I don't know, I just heard a lot of.
And so your opinion of what you witnessed that day, do you feel like voters had their rights to vote denied them? At least some?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, I do. And I know that there was a recount, and I know that, it was carefully done, but they did find a ballot box that had not ever been included in the count. I have heard about the count of early voters, which was, February the 16th through the 26th or something like that. But I've never heard anything about mail-in ballots or the military who probably mailed in ballots from overseas, because we do have a big military population here. But, maybe it was covered and I just didn't hear it. I don't know. But that's kind of bothered me.
Yeah. But you can't replace the votes that were never cast because there were not ballots.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. And I would be really upset if I had to stand in line for an hour to an hour and a half and never got to vote. And I don't know if they ever did get to vote.
It's a good question still to be answered. Diane, I appreciate your time and thank you for your information that you shared today.
Thank you.